The pen shook in Nathaniel Cross's hand as he signed his name on the job application, because it was the first time in 11 months that anyone had even let him fill one out. 3 years ago, he had walked into boardrooms wearing tailored suits. Today, he stood in the lobby of Harrington Tower in Chicago, wearing his only clean shirt, applying for a job mopping floors, just so he could keep the lights on for his 6-year-old daughter, Grace. If you believe in second chances, in kindness that shows up when you least expect it, hit that like button right now, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, share this with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to the channel, because this story is about to remind you that dignity can survive even the darkest seasons of a person's life. Nathaniel hadn't always been invisible. He used to run his own small logistics company, 3 trucks and a dream, until a fire tore through his warehouse and the insurance company found a technicality to deny his claim. Within a year, he lost the business, the house, and finally his wife, who couldn't handle the weight of watching everything crumble, and left before Grace's 5th birthday. Since then, it had just been the two of them, living in a cramped apartment above a laundromat on the south side, Nathaniel working 2 part-time jobs that never seemed to add up to enough. When he saw the janitorial listing at Harrington Enterprises, one of the largest tech firms in the country, he told himself it didn't matter what the job title said. A paycheck was a paycheck, and Grace needed shoes that actually fit her growing feet. The hiring manager barely looked up as she slid the application into a folder and told him someone from Human Resources would call if there was an opening. Nathaniel nodded, thanked her twice, the way people do when they're used to being dismissed, and turned to leave. He didn't notice that the folder would end up on the desk of someone far more powerful than any HR manager, because company policy required all executive floor janitorial hires to be personally approved by building operations, which reported, on paper at least, all the way up to the CEO's office. That CEO was a man named Elias Whitmore, 38 years old, worth more money than Nathaniel could imagine, and known throughout the industry for being cold, private, and nearly impossible to read. Elias rarely bothered with hiring folders, but that particular afternoon, restless after a brutal board meeting, he flipped through the stack out of habit, scanning names without really seeing them, until his eyes landed on one line near the bottom of a form, Nathaniel James Cross. His hand stopped moving. His breath caught somewhere in his chest. For a moment, the noise of the city outside his floor-to-ceiling windows seemed to disappear entirely, because Elias Whitmore hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in almost 15 years, not since the summer he was 23 years old, broke, homeless, and sleeping in his car outside a truck stop in Ohio. Back then, a stranger named Nathaniel Cross had pulled into that same truck stop, noticed a young man who hadn't eaten in 2 days, and without asking a single question, bought him a hot meal, handed him $40 he clearly couldn't spare, and told him that one bad season didn't define the rest of his life. Elias had never forgotten that kindness. He had built an entire company partly on the memory of a stranger who treated him like he still mattered when the whole world had written him off. Elias stared at the application photo, and slowly, the tired, guarded eyes staring back at him matched the face from that truck stop, older now, worn down by years he could only imagine. His assistant knocked twice before he finally answered, his voice unsteady in a way none of his employees had ever heard. He didn't send this one to Human Resources. Instead, Elias personally requested that Nathaniel be brought back to the building the next morning, not for a janitorial interview, but for a private meeting on the top floor. When Nathaniel arrived, confused and clutching a folder of old resumes out of habit, he assumed he'd done something wrong. Instead, he was led into an office with a view of the entire city, where a well-dressed executive turned around, studied his face for a long, quiet moment, and asked if he remembered a truck stop outside Columbus, Ohio, many years ago. Nathaniel's mouth went dry. He remembered every detail of that night, not because it was extraordinary to him, but because helping people in hard seasons was simply who he was, even when he had almost nothing himself. He never imagined that small act of decency had followed him across 15 years and into a stranger's boardroom. Elias's voice cracked as he told Nathaniel that he hadn't forgotten, that he had thought about that meal and those $40 more times than he could count, and that he had promised himself if he ever got the chance to repay that kindness, he would take it without hesitation. He wasn't offering Nathaniel a mop and bucket. He was offering him a position in the company's logistics division, the very field Nathaniel had once mastered, along with a salary that would change his and Grace's lives completely. If this story touched your heart even a little, please don't scroll past without leaving a comment, because I read every single one, and hearing from you means more than you know. Before we close this chapter, comment the word grace below if you believe kindness always finds its way back to those who give it freely. Nathaniel drove home that evening in stunned silence, gripping the steering wheel, tears finally falling after years of forcing himself to stay strong. That night, he picked Grace up from her after-school program, swung her into his arms, and whispered that things were finally going to be okay. And for the first time in years, he actually believed it.